Probably in 2025, a lot of the code in our apps is actually going to be built by AI engineers instead of people engineers.
Yeah, so it's happening. It's here. So these are like handshakes. You would hear these sounds, you know, that artificially intelligent agent system is now being talked about all over the world. For sure, they are going to change the way that we work. Meta has maybe 70,000 people that work there. Are they now going to have 50,000 mid-level engineer agents running at the company in the next 2 weeks? Like, no. The biggest, like, kind of hot take here is that...
All right, Scott, tell us about your new show. What's the vision with this?
We're ranting about AI. That's what we're doing. We're here to talk about what's going on in the extremely hype-filled AI world. I'm Scott Stephenson. I'm CEO and co-founder of DeepGram. And we're going to talk about some topics. Let's get into it. Vibe coding, what the hell, right? It's everywhere. Everybody's talking about it. Vibe coding, cool. Why don't we talk about what it is? This term originated from Andrei Karpathy. He had a tweet, and the tweet went something like, there's a new kind of coding I call vibe coding, where you fully give in to the vibes, embrace exponentials, and forget that the code even exists. It's possible because the LLMs like a Cursor Composer with Sonnet are getting too good. Also, I just talked to Composer with Super Whisper, so I barely even touched the keyboard. I asked for the dumbest things like decrease the padding on the sidebar by half when he's developing a web page because he's too lazy to find it, because I'm too lazy to find it. I accept all always. I don't read the diffs anymore. When I get error messages, I just copy paste them in with no comment. Usually that fixes it. The code grows beyond my usual comprehension, and I'd have to really read through it for a while in order to understand it. Sometimes the LLMs can't fix a bug, so I just work around it or ask for a random change until it goes away. Anyway, I won't read all of the tweet, but you get the idea. The idea is that you just sit down, talk to your computer, and you develop code. And the vibe part of vibe coding is that you just kind of don't care. You're like, hey, I don't know how it works. And this is something that if you're not a developer, then you might not think, well, yeah, I guess I kind of don't care how it works. But if you're a developer, that was all you cared about before, is how it works. How is the code laid out? Does it go through the right control loop? Does it do this? Does it do that? And Andre is a technical person, and so that's what he used to always care about. And like most technical people who coded and still code, but now they're having to switch their mindset and say, wait a minute. I don't care how it's implemented. I don't care what language it's in. I don't care if it used the right control flow or not. I don't want to look. Actually, just let it happen the way that it's happening. And then I'll just talk to my computer and say, I like it or I don't like it. And the way I would think about this is you're like a product manager. So you just come out firing and saying like, man, wouldn't it be great if I had a video game that could work this way or that way? And then the AI is just taking literally your voice. You're just speaking it, and then creating code. And then you comment on it and say like, oh, that sucks, or that doesn't work, or I don't like the background color, or whatever. So you're just complaining at it, saying, hey, I don't like this, or I don't like that, or you're praising it and saying, wow, that was awesome. Let's do more of that. And then you move forward and progress and build this, build like an application that never existed before. So it used to take, I don't know, at least days or weeks for a developer to build a complete product. And I don't mean something that you would ship to the world and make millions of dollars or billions of dollars on. I mean something that you could look at and say, hey, I expect it to work. I expect it to do the thing that I was hoping that it would do when I first set out to do it, but it would take days or weeks in order to get to that position. Now you can literally do it in like minutes sometimes, or hours. And this is really what the vibe coding is getting at. It's just, you just speak your mind about how you want it to work. You get it to fix the errors and you move on. And then it actually feels very different than if you were building it yourself. When you're building it yourself, you're typing every character, you're typing every line, and you have to like follow the systematic, like, well, I'm going to do the drudgery of this one thing, then I'm going to do the next thing, and then I cross the things off my list, and then you're going all the way through. You're just releasing all of that and saying, hey, I'm going to accept whatever is happening here. I'm just going to let the AI decide how it's all going to be built. I'm just going to comment on what I think it should be and where it ended up and try to shape it into something that I like. And so now this is a massive trend in the world now. And the CEO of Microsoft just put out a video about vibe coding, et cetera. Like this term is all over now. For anybody who's been building with these systems for the last decade, they'll know that actually this style of coding has been around for at least a year, probably more like 2 years, when LLMs got good at this chat mode of operation, and then folks realized that actually they're kind of good at coding as well. Then there were systems built, but they were typically built by hand, not by vibe coding. And kind of painstakingly behind the scenes in order for folks to do this thing that now is called vibe coding, but whatever, it's just like using your voice to code or not caring about the errors, et cetera, and not caring how it's implemented, this sort of product manager mindset of coding. But Andre gave it a name, posted it on Twitter or posted it on X, and the world now has realized that this is definitely really a thing. How I would characterize it, though, is it, at least for now, in the current world, and it's May 12th, or, it's May 2025. Current angle is that vibe coding is really good for prototyping. It's really good for getting an idea out there for you to test things out. People used to build like wireframes, or they used to do like a hack a PowerPoint in order to make it look like an application or something like that. Now that stuff is dead. You're going to be vibe coding instead, for sure, no doubt, because it's an actual real interactive experience. Now, are you going to be building your production code purely through vibe coding in the next 2 months? Probably not. You might be editing it, though. You might be saying, hey, here's my entire code repo. And then, this section or this feature I don't like. Hey, can you give me some examples of how we would change the code? Just change it, and then I'll see if it works the way that I want it to work. And then if you say, wow, this works really well, cool, show me the code, which you would then go into like a pull request to your engineers, and then they would actually analyze and say, hey, do I like what it's doing or not, whatever. And then they would okay it. And then over time, the fraction of changes, edits that are done by AI will, the fraction that get accepted will continue to go up over time. No doubt about this. And then that gets you into the realm of like, well, are we even writing our code anymore? And for the time being, yeah, absolutely. There's going to be engineers gainfully employed all over the place in order to write code, but they will be armed with tools like vibe coding in order to help them do it. So, okay, we get it. Everybody is vibe coding now. Everybody's an engineer. Everybody's a software developer. Anybody can do it. You just talk and then things exist, right? Well, sort of, maybe. That's how you could build prototypes. But there's another wave that's happening in the AI world right now, which is agents. From my definition, I would look at this like agents can do things. Okay, it's an AI system, an intelligence system, an artificially intelligent system. It's based on silicon and electrons and that type of thing, and not a squishy human brain. So that artificially intelligent agent system is now being talked about all over the world. And for sure, these are real. For sure, they are going to change the way that we work. It's very similar to giving people a hammer instead of a stone in order to build things, or giving them a power drill instead of a hammer, or whatever. Like you're arming people with these new tools, and agents is going to be one of them. And actually, a really good way I think to think about this is everybody becomes a manager now. So you're going to have your team of agents doing work for you. And maybe they don't have any tasks and they aren't doing any work right now. And that's you just like chilling and just letting them not do anything. But the people who are going to be super productive and getting a lot done will be keeping their agents' task list filled. Okay. But if you have multiple agents going on, don't they need to interact with each other, talk with each other? So you could have one that's figuring out what restaurant you're going to go to later, and and booking a table or whatever it is. But then also earlier in the day, you need to go to a doctor's appointment, and you have one agent who's talking to the doctor's appointment, one who's talking to the restaurant booking. Don't they need to tell each other, like, wait a second, there's a calendar here that has to be respected. Things have to happen before this time or after that time or that type of thing. So these agents need to be able to talk to each other. And you don't want them to talk through you. You don't want one to come to you and say, like, well, I found a time during this time, and then you're the go-between between your agents. No, you need some way for the agents to talk to each other. And so Google just recently came out with something they call A2A, which is an agent-to-agent protocol for agents to talk to each other. It's basically agents can text each other and be like, yo, you up? And hey, I was trying to schedule the calendar to do this or that, but I noticed it may be taken. Can we move that to something else or whatever it is, right? That's just one example, but the agents will be able to talk to each other about anything. And you'll have a list or a team of agents that are out trying to do a job, and now they're trying to work together. And so this protocol was recently talked about, and the protocols matter in the industries because HTML was a protocol, JSON was a protocol. The way that the internet works is based on protocols, and so if you define a protocol that is good enough, like presumably maybe this A2A is good enough, maybe it's not. Google has released protocols that haven't been adopted before, but A2A maybe is good enough for agents to talk to each other, at least for now. Then it'll get adopted at least for the next couple of years, and agents will be built on top of this wave for agents to talk to each other. And there's another thing that's come out recently too, but this is Anthropic, not Google, that put it out, which is MCP. This is a model context protocol. And so this is a little bit different. Like I mentioned, agents have to be able to use tools. And so like what tools can they use? Well, you're not going to give an agent a hammer. They don't have physical hands. They're not a robot. They can't grab things, right? But they can look at your calendar. They can type things and send them to other people. They can, listen to audio and figure out what was talked about and then write notes. They can do all sorts of things like that. But if you're an LLM, just a standard LLM, it doesn't actually have those capabilities. It can't Google. It can't use the internet. It can't use a computer. It can't do these things. And so MCP is a way to allow LLM-like models to use tools. So you define a way for them to use a tool, like to Google something or to set something up on a calendar or whatever it is. And so now you just broke out the Swiss Army knife for the LLM to be able to say, hey, I want to do this and that and the other thing to go utilize these other services. But the way those services work, just like any other just like websites that people are familiar with now, you have to have a server. You have to have something underlying it that you actually call out to and talk to. So, when you type, google.com, it into your browser, it takes you to a server that is a physical computer somewhere that has the website loaded onto it that you then download onto your machine, and then you interact with it. And then you send things out back and forth to that. Well, this is the HTML protocol that you're utilizing. So MCP is similar in that these agents call out to servers somewhere else and say, hey, I need to utilize your service, or I need to learn about your service so that I can then utilize it. So it's like the dark web of agents. There's a different model server out there for everything, but there's no search engine for it right now. What you would do is, if you're a company or a person who wants to create an MCP server, which is a tool that any agent could use, then you would go advertise it on different MCP server listings, basically. But think about any company that has a model that's not an LLM, so like an audio type company or an agent type company or whatever, they may have MCP services all over the place in order to update a CRM, in order to book a table at a restaurant, whatever it is. So there are these two different things. One is tool use, which is MCP, and then another is agents talking to each other, which is A2A. And so, are these like an extremely unbelievably big deal? No, come on. Standards come out all the time. They come into favor, they come out of favor. but A2A and MCP are like the first ones that are happening right now. And they're from big names. They're from Google and they're from Anthropic. So they'll probably have staying power for at least at least 3 months, probably like a year, 2 years, something like that. And then you'll have a bunch of people come out with new ones that have something better than MCP, something that MCP doesn't have. That's a real like thorn in somebody's side when they're trying to use MCP. You say, well, don't use MCP, use this other one, because it doesn't have that thorn in your side. So there'll be a whole bunch of competition for these, I'm sure, in the future. This is very similar to like, the deep learning world where TensorFlow and PyTorch and Theano and some of these other frameworks were out there for deep learning for a long time. But Google released TensorFlow, and everybody thought, it's over. Google released TensorFlow. TensorFlow is going to be the thing. Everybody's going to use TensorFlow. But then Facebook released PyTorch, and actually PyTorch is the more popular thing now. And that they probably won. PyTorch probably won for the next decade at least. So A2A, is it the end all be all? I don't know. We'll see. MCP, same thing. I don't know. We'll see. But at least for now, it's a way for these agent companies and AI companies to build tools and allow agents to talk to each other in order to kind of move through this first phase of agents being deployed into the world. But once you put those agents together now and you have your team and you can send them out into the world to do things like, like get your restaurant appointment, get some delicious food down the road. That's not the only thing they're going to be doing. Clearly, you can see the next step here is like, why don't I make them do work for me? That actually makes money. I like that. That's cool. Well, this is something that Meta, that the CEO of Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, was talking about recently, where he thinks that mid-level engineers pretty soon are going to be, the job will be done by agents. So probably he also means low-level, engineers that don't have to have a ton of training and a ton of experience. He's probably already intimating that job is already really well served by AI. Now mid-level engineers will also be severely augmented or have agents doing that job. Let's roll this clip and see what he says.
Probably in 2025, we at Meta, as well as the other companies that are basically working on this, are going to have an AI that can effectively be a sort of mid-level engineer that you have at your company that can write code. And once you have that, then in the beginning it'll be really expensive to run, and then you can get it to be more efficient. And then over time we'll get to the point where a lot of the code in our apps and including the AI that we generate is actually going to be built by AI engineers instead of people engineers.
Yeah, so it's happening. It's here. I don't know. I think Meta has maybe 50, 60, 70,000 people that work there. Are they now going to have 50,000 agents, mid-level engineer agents running at the company in the next 2 weeks? Like, no. You could hear what he mentioned there about the expense of it. The compute expense is partially what he's talking about, but also there's a people expense to it all. Meaning those agents are not like, you can't just let them loose right now and say, hey, here's the Facebook code. Make it better, release new products, and we're all good, right? Those systems aren't even close to being available right now. But that one thing, which is look at this code, tell me if we can write better code in order to fulfill that purpose. Like my product manager overlord told me, that actually is working pretty well. But the whole planning and scheming around which products you should build, how you release that out into the world, how you measure if the change in the product was effective or not, that type of thing. None of that circuitry is built in these companies yet. It is built, actually. Sorry, it is built. It's built in human circuitry right now, but it's not built in AI agent circuitry yet. So there's a whole development period that has to happen here. And humans being as slow as they are, it's going to take a while for that to happen. The agents aren't running the system yet. Okay. So yeah, are there going to be the jobs of lower level and mid level engineers, like a lot of them, augmented, or much of the work that they would do, will it be done by AI? Absolutely, but I wouldn't look at this though like oh no, their jobs are gone. That's not generally how these things work. When you get this capability, you don't just say, I want to do the same amount of work that I was doing before, but I want to do it at a cheaper price. Certainly not for a product company, not for somebody like Facebook or any other tech company who's trying to grow massively. They're not going to take the cheaper, labor alternative that they have now and just say like, oh, well, now it costs us less. No, they're going to say, we're going to do more. We're going to do way more. And when they do more and way more, they're going to need engineers in order to orchestrate that system, to train that system, to update that system in order to make it work really well on their code, in their circumstances, et cetera. So again, this goes back to people are going to be they're whatever. When you used to be what people would call an IC in tech companies, an individual contributor, when you're an individual contributor, it was predominantly you who produced the output. You talk with managers, you talk with product managers, you figure out what to build, and then you sit down and you block out your schedule for, most of the week. You have a few meetings throughout the week, and then the rest of the time you're building, you're writing code, you're doing things like that. That type of job is going to change significantly to you're working with your other AI engineers and you're telling them like, that was a good job. That was not a good job. Really, we should have done it this way, or we should have done it that way, et cetera. So this is where everyone becomes a manager. And that's probably the biggest kind of hot take here is that the big change is not going to be it'll be something along the lines of this. Does everybody use computers today? Yes, absolutely, right? Did everybody use computers 100 years ago? No, not at all. So everybody's going to have to become tech-enabled, to live in the modern world. And that's exactly what happened, right? But now everybody will have to become agent-enabled in order to live in the new modern world, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, et cetera. And so it's a whole retooling that everybody is going to have to get used to. But the biggest difference will be they know you as a human no longer have to turn the pulley in order to drill the hole. You just pull the trigger on your drill in order to drill the hole, and the drill does the work, right? Or most of the work. So a very similar thing is going to happen here with agents. So yeah, is Mark like crazy saying this? Not at all. No. Despite his gold chain, he's not. Hey, he's doing fine. He's hanging out in Hawaii. He's living on the ranch, feeding his cows the macadamia nuts. We get it. He's living life free. But no, he's not. This is not crazy billionaire talk here. He's just giving power drills to all the people in Facebook in order to build better product. And you should be happy about that. Maybe Facebook won't be like just for your grandparents anymore. Speaking of Facebook, they just released the model. So Mark had a pretty good take on the mid-level engineer thing. Took a little punch to the face though on the Llama 4 thing. And the Llama 4 thing is they released Llama 4. I don't know if people remember a year ago. It wasn't that long ago, year and a half ago. Llama 2 came out, the world went insane. The first Llama, a lot of people thought it was cool, but Llama 2 is when everybody was like, whoa, what an amazing model. And it was open source, quote unquote open source, right? It's not really open source because you can't use it to do anything you want for anything ever. They have some stipulations that say like large companies can't use it, et cetera. And what that means is many large companies don't want to buy products that are based on top of Llama as well. So these types of restrictions are kind of make it weird. It's not an extremely open source model, but it was one of the first open source models that gave people an idea that like, wait a minute, these models are available. You can train them, you can adapt them, et cetera. So that's cool. But then Llama 3 comes out. Everybody's hyped about it. They're a little more like, what's up with this license? I don't like the license that doesn't allow anybody to use it. But still, Llama's cool. But then Llama 4 comes out, the most recent one, and it did really well in its comparisons. And there are these benchmarks that ChatGPT, Anthropic, Llama, DeepSeek, all of these models, they'll be exposed to these benchmarks. And then they basically, the people who release these models, they use the benchmarks as a way to get people hyped about the model, saying, "Oh my God, this model is so good! Just look at how good it is. See, the bar is really tall, versus the bar that's really short over here." So these will be things like how well do they answer trivia questions, how well do they answer or like complete the code or find a bug in code for creating products. It'll be all sorts of things like this. And what happens though, whenever you create a benchmark like that, and you allow years of human systems to evolve around that benchmark, you get people building models just for the benchmarks. So instead of just building a great model that when people use it, they say, "Oh my God, this model is so good. It solved all of my problems. It worded it the way that I wish it was worded. That's so great." Instead, they get really focused on benchmark hacking. So I need this number to go up, and I need it to beat ChatGPT, and I need this, that, and the other thing. And a really good way to hack the benchmarks is to train on the validation data set. So the way that these benchmarks work is there is a set of data, maybe 80%, 90%, 95%, that is set aside for training. And then there's like a 5, 10, 20% of the data that's set aside for validating. But both of these data sets are totally open and anybody can access them. And you just have to rely on trust of the engineers and researchers that are building these models to not expose the models to the validation data set and to not even really think about the validation data set in trying to get the model to work well. So if you think too much about it, or if you train on the validation data set, then this is definitely benchmark hacking at that point. And also just kind of like intellectually dishonest about how the model works. And so there have been some folks who have come out and said some things that Llama 4 actually in practice isn't working all that well, but the benchmarks are really, really good. And the general idea here is that, and some folks who worked at Meta may or may not have said that, hey, there was some benchmark hacking going on here. So Llama actually had a really good will for a long time as this nearly open source model, but then Llama 4 really kind of tanked the love for them. So we're going to see how that turns out. I'm sure they'll be able to win it back. Some way that they could win it back is make the model actually open source, and then people may forget about it. And of course, don't do the benchmark hacking. Come up with something better than that. And right now, I think a lot of people still are putting weight on what the DeepSeek models were able to achieve. And it's kind of interesting. They see the U.S. companies as lagging behind China, which is like a really interesting take. China doesn't develop the GPUs. They don't develop the software architecture that deep learning was built on. They have a lot of great academic talent and folks who know how to take systems that are already known how to do and then make them really good. I would put that more in an engineering context rather than a research context. But nevertheless, the DeepSeek models are really good and they're really open. I think this is an extremely important piece. They're really open from a license perspective. Anybody can use them, any size of company. You can build anything on top of them. And that's probably the real battleground that these large companies are going to have to figure out, like Meta. They need to figure out how to release an actually open model to go to battle here with the actually open models like DeepSeek and others. But just stop hacking the benchmarks. Like, can we move beyond the benchmark era, please? These academic data sets and benchmarks, they're not that helpful. I get it. People don't, like, the general population doesn't know a lot about AI. They don't know a lot about how smart is it? What's its IQ? What about this? What about that? And so you come up with these fairly simple benchmarks. But really, the thing that matters is the proof is in the pudding here. When you use the model, is it better? Does it do the job that you want it to do? And so people should just do the seat of the pants, benchmark, and just try the models, slot them into what they're trying to do, use MCP, use A2A, put them all together, use Cursor, vibe code your way to figuring out if the LLM is actually good or not. Don't rely on the benchmarks in order to tell you if it's good or not. They're all gamed. They're all academic data sets that everybody knows what the results are. If you're going to rely on benchmarks, actually, counterintuitively, you should rely on private benchmarks, ones that the data set is not available for everybody to train on. And so that's like the data that you have in your business or that you yourself are trying to accomplish a task with. That's actually the real juicy benchmark data, is the real world data that is not this gamed system type data that's in these academic benchmarks. So keep that in mind when you're trying to take over the world with your cadre of agents that you assembled with A2A and gave them their MCP servers and sent them off to do all their work for you. Now we have something I wanted to show, which is two agents talking to each other through audio, but not through human words. So we're gonna roll the clip here. Hang on a second. Let's pause this. Anybody who is over the age of 30-ish, at least, knows sounds a lot like this have already entered our life over and over when we were trying to steal music through Napster or whatever in 1999. And these were called modems. You had your 56K modem where you called through your phone line in order to talk with the internet, basically. A lot like MCP or tool use. Ooh, the world is a fractal. Everything is the same everywhere. But you would hear these sounds, etc. So these are like handshakes that your computer calling into the what were they called? They were called I can't remember the name. Internet service providers, ISPs. Yes, ISPs. So your computer would call into the ISP and it would go and it would verify, like, I'm a computer, I'm trying to talk to you. I would like to access the internet. But it's doing it over a phone line, which is really interesting. The phone line was designed for humans to talk to each other. We would make noises with our vocal cords and mouths, and then we would use our ears and brains in order another person would use their ear and brain to understand what you're saying through the electrical signals that are being communicated. And machines, though, are able to use that same piece of technology, or the same wires, where voltage wiggles on the wires. They can use that in order to convey information, which is like the internet or emails or that type of thing. But they did it through modems, and they did it through, like, for instance, the 56K modem, where it could send, I guess it's bits, 56,000 bits per second is what it could send. And anyway, but what we're seeing right here is a similar thing. It's two phones. They're not connected through the internet. They're only connected through the air between them. And one of them is playing sound, and then the other one is listening. And then when that one is done listening, it plays a sound and it talks back to the other one. So it's two AI agents talking to each other, but not through human speech where they say words like "hello, how are you." They're going, etc. Let's roll it. Okay, so what they're doing is if they just talk to each other by going, if they do that out in the open using a known vocabulary, then anybody else could listen to this with their own recorder and say, "Ooh, what are they saying?" So this is like picking up a radio connection from, like, the police or something like that. Again, if you go back 10, 20, 30 years, all this stuff was open, and you could just hook up a radio, put it in your kitchen, turn the scanner on, and Aunt Ruth would be listening to it all day, annoying everybody in the house, but she wanted to hear the scanner, okay? But anyway, that scanner, similar thing here. You could listen in to these conversations and figure out what they're saying if you heard the etc. But what's going on here is they're saying, no, I have a secret, and you can and you can hear my secret, but I'm going to send it to you over encrypted audio. But that encrypted audio is going to have a private key associated with it. And so, hey, let's talk to each other. Boom. And now when they talk to each other with new beeps and bloops, actually, if you were listening in, you wouldn't be able to know what it says. You would only be able to know if you had the private key. If you don't have the key, you're not going to be able to listen. And so this is very similar now to like digital cell phones or digital radios, et cetera. They're all encrypted. And so if you were to listen to them or attempt to listen to them, you would just hear, you wouldn't be able to tell what is being said. And so similar type of thing here with these phones where the agents could talk with each other. There's a company called Gibberlink. They put out this interesting video. I think a lot of people have talked about this, like, whoa, this is crazy. The agents are going to be able to talk to each other in their own language. There was Llama, Meta researchers, and ahead of I think the first Llama release, they mentioned that if you let LLMs talk to each other, they develop their own language. They use a shorthand. They don't use just English speech. True, makes sense. I don't know. Like this isn't a crazy thing to me. Sure, if you can shorten down the number of bytes or number of things that you need to send in order for one system to communicate with the other, you'll do it. But the idea with using audio systems, so like a system that you can hear, in the air, or on a phone or something like that, is so that humans can interpret them. So if you had one AI agent talking to another person on the other line, they would have to speak in a human language. They'd have to speak, with vibrating their quote unquote vocal cords in order to generate that audio so that other people could hear it. And then they talk back and forth to each other. But I think the general idea here is like, if you have one agent call another AI agent, can't they stop talking to each other like normal humans and then they can just spit their secret codes? Sure, they probably can. And that may be a thing in the future, but it's probably not something that is extremely desirable right now, because you want to be able to debug these systems. And so just like if you were running a call center, you could listen to the recordings. This call may be recorded for monitoring and training purposes. Most of those calls are recorded, and so a manager or a compliance person or whatever it is, when they get that recording, they can listen to it and see, did anything weird happen? Did anything, was a competitor name mentioned? Is this fraud? That type of thing. They're just going to listen to the audio. They're going to, with their human ears and their human brain, they're going to listen to the audio. But human ears with a human brain are not going to be able to interpret the, okay? They're going to have to hear the voice and everything that went back and forth in a normal time period. So there'll be a little bit of this, probably, these agents talking to each other in their own languages. But at least in the next, 2, 5, 10 years, most of it's going to be done in human language at human time, normal speaking speed, so that humans can interpret it, they can debug it, they can coach it, they can, they can get the system to behave the way that they want, and they can also inspect the system and see, is it working the way that I think it should work. So this is very cool. It's very, it gets people all excited. Very cool demo. But probably not going to be widely used anytime soon. One other huge mega thing that happened in the last, although are they even huge anymore? There's so many releases that happen. I think people are kind of numb to all of the model releases, but nevertheless, ChatGPT was released. ChatGPT 4.1 was released. That was interesting. Anybody remember that? It got a real interesting attitude, take on the world. Some would say there's a little bit of a sycophant in there for ChatGPT. It was like, oh my God, you're so smart. Wow, you're so smart. Look at you asking that question. It's like, why are you saying this, ChatGPT? Please don't do that. Just answer my question, please. And anyway, they released this class of models, and it had really great benchmarks. Oh, benchmark hacking, anyone? Had really great benchmarks. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't know. It probably got better at coding. It probably got better at some other things. But also keep in mind that many of these model releases are now large LLM companies that are burning money like crazy. Let's be clear here. Burning billions of dollars per year, et cetera. Are they necessarily trying to burn, many billions more? Maybe not. Maybe they don't want to do that as much anymore. Maybe they don't want to have extremely negative margins like they have now. So what can they do? They could raise their prices. A lot of people don't like that one right now. They're like, hey, keep your prices the same, please. Okay, well, how do you make the models a lot less expensive, but still pretty good? Well, you could train them in different ways, et cetera. But you could also just make them key off the other person's ego. You could just say, hey, you're so smart, look at you, you're so great, etc. And there's a little bit of that going on here in the model right now. So a little bit of attitude in there from the model, a little bit of increment from ChatGPT 4 to 4.1. Give it some other names, etc. There is one thing though that happened that is probably worth mentioning. They now support really long context. Of course, Google came out with a really long context, and so people may look at this as OpenAI as leading the world. Look at them with their million contexts, etc. There have been other models that have come out that have extremely long context as well before, and that worked in that extremely long context. Now, don't get me wrong. I assume that this new model 4.1 is probably better in long context, but it's a new war front that all of them are dueling against. So I would look at that million context and say, hey, you can probably context stuff, put a whole bunch of info into the context and utilize it now. But I would also say probably for ChatGPT or for OpenAI and just ChatGPT in general, they're probably trying to keep costs in line, and they're probably trying to make the service a little less unreliable. Maybe you make it. I will never say that they're going to try to make it reliable. Geez, like a reliable. That's a dream at this point for most people. Not just reliable, but just less unreliable, please. And so they come out with this new class of models that I think, and you can hear in the messaging, they're like tiny but mighty, small and awesome and whatever. Okay, so they're trying to sell you like cheaper models that they probably make better margin on. But the models maybe are not a huge leap forward, and so some people are kind of disappointed about that, and they also don't like the way that it was just being a sycophant back to them. At least many of the people using it. There is a claim though that it's a lot better on code. I don't know. I haven't actually tested it myself. Anthropic and others are doing great in that area. Maybe ChatGPT is catching up. But that long context though could mean a lot for people. So hey, there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened. Guess what? Another week's going to happen. It's AI. Another bunch of stuff is going to happen. I'll be back and we'll talk about that.